Yeah, so this is a fair use from the Act of 1976. Disclaimer, Section 107, under critical and teaching and scholarship and educational purposes, research. I am not making any money off this. This is fair use, fair use.
Yeah. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh Shai. We want to give all praises, all honor, and all glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachaha Kodash, Ka'alayim Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well and do well. To the elder apostles, bishops in Connecticut, the bishops, the preachers, the teachers, the evangelists, and the four winds preaching in truth and sincerity, risking your lives more now than ever, the hopeful elect, Shalom. To the Israelite foreigners whose phenotype may look like another nation, but bloodline goes back to Israel through your father, and have come back to the fold, Shalom. To you sisters, you Chwathim, who listen and learn under your husband, which is your spiritual leader, with meekness and with silence. This your brother Aram Yahawada with the lesson. And I was going through the Bible this morning, and then ran into the Titus 1:14, and of course it says Jewish right there, and as you can see, I put the word Jew. I added. I said, when did they add Jewish to Titus 1:14? And then of course this thing told me that the word Jewish was not added to Titus 1:14. So wait a minute. I'm no idiot. So I know it had to be added, right? So they telling me it wasn't not added in the sense of a modern alteration. So it wasn't altered. Not in the right way, like you said. It basically said it was altered, but not altered, right? Rather, it was a direct translation of the original Greek word, whatever that is, lato acaso, a case, yeah, acaso, yeah, some, which has been presented in the earliest known manuscripts of the New Testament, which is absolute lies, right? This is the phrase used by Apostle Paul, and they put all, and so they do this because people don't know what this madness is anyway, right? So it looks like there's some scholars like, oh shit, I guess they know. So and then you don't look any further, right? They'll tell you some madness, right? So let's just skip that because they're gonna tell you a bunch of madness because. It was used in the Geneva, right? I don't know that. I pretty much doubt that, but I get to the point. Kind of, I typed back into it. Said, "Stop lying. The word Jewish did not exist in that time." Then, of course, it came back. Oh well, you're absolutely right. Well, no shit. Why didn't you say that in the first place? You know what I'm saying? You're absolutely right that the modern English word Jewish did not. Wait, but they said it wasn't a thing. It was not as the modern term of alteration is, but it was a direct translation. Well, if there's, how is that a direct translation? Right? Yeah. The modern word Jewish did not exist in the first century. But see, you go back to this, they're telling you, oh, in the first century, all this shit. What was that? I think it's right here. Yeah, see, it's going to tell you, yeah, it's in the Geneva and blah, 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 according to the 1611, Jewish and fable, it stood for many different translations, reading to readers today. Yeah, tell you all sorts of bunch of BS, right? Then, wait, well, hold on. The first century, the letter J was not even part of the English alphabet, right? You stupid people. And you listen to Deacon Akkad and the rest of these mad people out here until the 16th century, which really would think it was even later than that, because people didn't use it, so it wasn't popularized, right? You had to keep doing and then make it popular. So you had the 16th century. People probably, it was in there or it did thing, but it wasn't people wasn't really using it like that. You had to wait some time. You had to probably wait to 17th, 18th, maybe 19th century, and then now it's popular. Now people use it regular. So even then, they're not being forthcoming with it, right? It says when people say Jewish was in Titus 1 and 14, they are referring to the English translation of an ancient Greek word that carries a similar meaning. Well, similar meaning does not equate to saying, because a similar meaning, what they're not saying, it would be most likely it would be Jews or what would they say? Well, really, it come from Yahwadoth, right? Right, which basically what they say is the modern breakdown of Judah, right? Right? So, and if you want to break it down, it goes into what they call Judah, or they'll break it down even smaller and say Jews. Now you can say that's a term that's similar to it or going into, but when you add in the ish and all that, that's an addentation, right? Not being forthcoming about the addentation, and that's what I was trying to figure out, which basically in itself is showing that they added it. So if you add and take from this book, the Lord's going to add and take from your life, right? See, another reason why, which that's blasphemy of the Holy Spirit. That's why Esau cannot be saved, right? A similar meaning at that time, right? The original word versus the English word, right? This is the Greek word, which really you got to go back to it being a Hebrew word, Yahwadoth, right? That's what is another thing that they're being dishonest about. I mean, because the Apostle Paul, yeah, he was a he was a preacher to the Gentiles, but it was to the Jews and then also the Greeks. So there had to be a Hebrew writing of the same verse as well, or they had the same verse, and then they broke it down into the Greek, right? You know, but then it was not just one language anyway. Of him being, you still had Latin, you still had the people that was the barbarians. Barbarians, I don't think, because it tells you all those different people spoke different languages when you go into Acts. All those Israelites, right? When he was a minister, and his office was to the Gentiles. Those Gentiles had many different languages, so I'm pretty sure you couldn't just speak Greek. See, and that's what they just break it down into, and really, it had to come from the Hebrew, right? You know what I'm saying? That's what they're not telling you. Says the original Greek word Apostle Paul actually wrote in the 1st century. Let's see. Let's see if we can go to this thing. Jew. Yeah, see? Meaning Jew. No. Doesn't make sense. To be with Jews, see? And that's basically what they're saying. Let's see.
Jews, Judeans.
Judeans, right? So they saying this Judeans, I guess it translate today as Jewish, right? Which is BS, right? To people as Judea, right? Those practicing the Jewish faith and culture. Right. See, they're making up shit. Right? At the end of the day, they're just making it up. They're basically saying, well, no, well, the word Judean and Jewish has the same meaning. Right? When their own encyclopedia said modern day Jewry is Edom, right? So what they're talking about, right? Is making up stuff. Refers to matters of portraying to the Jewish religion, culture, or religion of Judean. It is the adjective from related to the noun see if I can. Damn, it won't let me get to it. see if I can get this.
Iodios, Jew, name.
Iodios. Right, because there's no J. Iodios. Right, which I guess is a way of saying Jew. Right. It says Iodias or Jew or Judean. It sounds like you're referring the term Iodias, which is the ancient Greek term for a Jew. It doesn't go, as I'm saying, yeah, right? It doesn't go back to Jewish. Someone from Judea. This term is used in the New Testament and classical sources to describe the Jewish people, right? See, which basically they're adding to this. They're adding to it because there was no such thing as Jewish, right? Or the inhabitants of the region of Judea, right? Let me see if I can get Chat GPT. So I said, yeah. Because a Jewish is not used in the ancient Hebrew Israelite. Oh, that thing just changed my thing. I don't know why it does that. I did not. Okay. I had M there. I had it changed to an N. Okay. It's not quite accurate. The English word Jewish is later, but it is made up. Oh, it absolutely is made up in the sense of being disconnected from the ancient identity as it a linguistic elevation of much older terms. No, because we know that this is made up. Yeah, ease. Okay, because you can't do it that way, Slovakia. No. Let me do capital. Let me do it this way. Yeah, I got this right here. This is the Paleo Hebrew alphabet. So they're absolutely 100% lying, telling you that there is there is a E and a U sound in the Paleo Hebrew. And this is the alphabet, right, in the Paleo Hebrew. And when you go in the Hebrew, it goes from right to left, not left to right. So as you can see right here on the screen, this is the Paleo Hebrew. So you're going to start from right, and then you have to go left. So we're going to start with the first letter, and let's see if there's any E's or U's in the Paleo Hebrew, which our Lord Yahushua would have been speaking in, right? Because he's a Hebrew Israelite, right? Ah, ba, ga, da, ha, wa, za, ha, right? Right? Ta, ya, right? So you haven't heard any U's, haven't heard any E sounds, right? Ka, la, ma,
Na.
Na.
Sa.
Sa, right? I. See, even though it looks like an O, you don't go ooh. There's no ooh. There's no Jew, right? You know, ooh-ish. Yeah, how do you get that? You can't get that from that, right? That's an I, right? And that's what they're trying to say, that it's deriving from I, because they made the J, and the J is a continual. Well, we know that it's created. It wasn't even created in the time of the Greeks, because they're trying to say that it's linked to the Greek, but it wasn't created when the Greeks were in rulership, right? It was created in the was it the 1500s, 1600s, right? It's only 400 to 500 years old, right? By a man named Giorgio Tristino. He created the letter J, right? You know? Pa. Taza. Qua. Ra. And then we're in the last two letters now. We still haven't heard no E or no U sounds, but they're telling you, no, it does go back to that, right? Sha and ta. There's no E's or U's in the Paleo Hebrew that our Lord was speaking, because you're talking about the land of Canaan, right? Which they call it the Canaanite language, right? Yeah, here these devils go, bro, right? Because they're scrubbing the internet and they're trying to change things. See, this is why the Lord's going to destroy you, man. You're adding and taking away, not only just from the scriptures, but you're adding and taking away from just history, just in a general, right? You're going to say that the Paleo Hebrew, right, which Hebrew in itself is a language, right, referred to earlier scriptures, not a language. Oh, wait a minute. The Paleo Hebrew is not a language. Oh, yeah. Used by the ancient Israelites and Canaanites in the 10th and the 6th century. So the Paleo Hebrew that the Israelites and the Canaanites used, that's not real. Basically, that's what they're trying to tell you, right? You know, Paleo Hebrew was used to write the Hebrew language, which is closer related to the Canaanite. Come on, but you just said it that they didn't use it. See how you lie? Closer to the dialectics like of the Philistines or the Phoenicians and the Moabites. Bro, they all spoke the Paleo Hebrew, right? A lot of them spoke, because that's how when you got the Moabite stone, matter of fact, which is the Paleo Hebrew, right? Yeah. So before I go to the Moabite stone right here, I'm just going to, because they're saying that the Paleo Hebrew was not used in, but let's see what the word paleo in itself means, right? Paleo.
Paleo.
Is a prefix meaning old or ancient, derived from the Greek, right? So this the Edomites gave it that terminology, right? You know, but then at the same time they no, it wasn't you. Come on, bro. That doesn't make sense. Often used to describe a prehistoric or geological or ancestral topics. It is most commonly used to context of paleo, right? Meaning ancient diets and a nutritional plan based on foods, and presumed to be available to paleotheistic hunters, gatherers, and so on and so forth. But basically, at the end of the day, it goes back to being something that they used to be old or ancient, saying that that's what that is. So when you're saying paleo, and then you're literally putting it before a language, because Hebrew is a language. So you're saying this ancient prehistoric, on top of that language. Ecclesiasticus chapter 1, verse 1. It says that the prologue of the wisdom of, well, I guess a person would be like a Joshua, which Joshua goes to, really goes back to Yahweh Shai, right? Right? The son of Sirach. I forgot how to say it. For it's Yahweh Shai. It was Yahweh. Shoot. Because Joshua was named, it was like Yahweh, like Yahweh Shawai. And then later, because Moses changed it to Yahweh Shai, right? It got changed to Yahweh Shai, right? Because he delivered the children of Israel out, through the wilderness, right? Because Moses had to, he had to, he wasn't gonna, he didn't make it into the promised land at that time, right? Right, which is another understanding of reincarnation. He didn't make it on that, which basically what's going to happen to you two-thirds this time, right? Instead of it not being the righteous not making it, and then they have to come in through reincarnation. It's going to be you unrighteous that's going to have to come in through reincarnation, which the Lord did that for them too, right? 40 years. And then they had the only way for them to get into the land was through reincarnation, which a lot of brothers call them nutsack Israelites, right? And that's what happened. So, but let's get to this, because that's a whole nother topic. It says, whereas many and great things have been delivered unto us by the law and the prophets, and by others that have followed their steps, right? See, many and great things, and that's what we're going through now. We're about to experience Yahweh Bashim Awashai on high. Like there's not gonna be a like a misconnect anymore. You know what I mean? We're gonna have a whole better connection with the Lord, like in the time of Acts. So Acts is gonna be another Acts 2.0, 2.5, however you want to say it. Acts is we're embarking in the time of Acts all over again, right? Because it's gonna be like a lot of many miracles that's gonna be happening amongst us, right? But it's going to be greater things, right? And we followed in the steps of our predecessors, basically, the other prophets and things like that. And it says that for which things Israel ought to have committed for learning wisdom, and whereof not only the readers must need be skillful themselves, right? So this is a thing where you have to be skillful yourself to actually break this down and understand when you have these clerical errors. And then, of course, you have the devil himself who will try to pretend and try to use certain things, to his advantage to make it be like, oh, okay, well, that those black Hebrew Israelites must be lying because I just went there and I hit a wall. So, and it's saying it's this, so I guess it must be that. But you got to go a little bit deeper, and ultimately the Spirit got to be dealing with you, right? And it says, commended for learning, if I'm saying it right, and wisdom, and whereof not only the readers must need be skillful themselves. So it's a lot of skill and technically you're supposed to have skills. You got to be, but also they that desire to learn. So you have a desire to learn the scriptures, and be able to profit themselves, right? Because you want to inherit the kingdom of heaven. You want to receive salvation, right? And it's important to you could profit yourself when you read, instead of just reading or just accepting what other people say. When it comes to reading the scriptures, right? You dive into it yourself, right? That you may profit them, profit them, right? Should say profit themselves. It should say them. It should say themselves. But hey, whatever. The profit them, right? Which is plural, I guess, in itself. Which are without both by speaking and writing. So someone's speaking this to you, or you're reading it and you're reading the writings. Either way it go, you're gonna have to be skillful. You're gonna have some type of understanding, which really ultimately the Spirit's gonna have to be with you. Spirit of Yahweh Bashim Shai is gonna have to be with you. My grandfather, which would be basically Yahweh Shai, when he had much given himself to the reading of the law and the prophets, because that's how you ultimately get understanding. You can't jump to the New Testament and just say the law is done away with, because you can't really understand the New Testament without understanding the law, right? And then you need to go through the prophets, right? Because the prophets leaves clues, right? That's part of discernment, right? And breaking this all down for understanding, right? So you have to have the law, you have to have the prophets, right? To have to understand this, right? He had much given himself to the reading of the law and the prophets and other books of our fathers, not other books of the world, right? Other books regarding our fathers, other books that regards where the scriptures, referring to the scriptures, right? You want to dive too far to the left, too far to the right, dive into a bunch of other things, and then you veer off, and then your attention is somewhere else, right? Then you start serving other gods, or then you start you start just coming up with all sorts of bugged out doctrines, and had gotten therein good judgments, right? That's what it's all about, and was drawn on also himself to write some things pertaining to learning and wisdom, to right, because well, this is Ecclesiastes, Sirach. This is the book of Sirach. So he's saying, that's what basically that's what Ecclesiasticus is. It's they also call this the book of Sirach, right? So that's the writings that he did, learnings, pertaining to learning and wisdom, to intend those intend that those which are desirous to learn and are addicted to those things, right? Right. Right. Yeah. You become addicted to the scriptures, man. And addicted to those things might profit much more in living according to the law. Wherefore, let me entreat you to read it with favor and attention, right? Because you want to ask the Lord to give you understanding, right? Wisdom. You pray for it. Natan layak kama. Natan layak. Well, you get Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakakwadash, Natan layak kama, Natan layak yadaith. You want to pray for wisdom or knowledge and understanding to give it to you, right? Right? Yeah, so that's what you're doing, right? Yahweh, meaning he that exists. Bahasham, in the name Yahweh Shai, which is the Son, he delivers or he saves. He's Nathan Laya, right? Give to me Kakama, knowledge. Give Nathan Laya Yadaith, wisdom, right? And that's what you want to do, because you want to have what? With favor and attention, and to pardon us, right? We're in, this is the point right here. We're in, we may have, we may seem to come short of some words which we have labored to interpret, for the same thing uttered in Hebrew and translated into another tongue have not the same force in them. And not only these things, but the law itself. So you're not going to get the full power coming to this thing and just into the English, or coming to it in whatever language. You kind of lose some things in including the law, because that's important to have the understanding. And the prophets, right? See, and in the prophets, and the rest of the book have no small differences when they are spoken in their own language, right? It has that power when it's spoken in its own language. So it's spoken in the Hebrew, there's real power in that, right? But there's no way, even if when you go into the New Testament was written in the Greek, you still couldn't get you wish, and you can't even get Jesus out of Greek, right? It doesn't make sense, right? You couldn't possibly get it. So you're not getting the full power or the strength without going back to yeah. So with all that, I want to, go ahead and end this lesson right there. Lord willing, it was edifying. So I want to give all praises, all honor, and all glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha HaKodash. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well and do well. To the elder apostles, bishops in Connecticut, the bishops, the preachers, the teachers, the evangelists, and the four winds, preaching in truth and sincerity, risking your lives more now than ever, the hopeful elect. The elect, Shalom. To the Israelite foreigners whose phenotype may look like another nation, but bloodline goes back to Israel through your father, and have come back to the fold, Shalom. To your sisters, your Akhwathiim, who listen and learn under your husband, which is your spiritual leader, with meekness and with silence, and above all, Chom Yeshua.